Ladies and gentlemen, we are well into the offseason. That means it's time to start talking about the NFL draft. And I know the Ravens season was a little bit of a bummer in 2025. But I think the good news coming from that is they've locked down a top 15 pick. That's right, they're picking at number 14. It's the highest they picked at a decent bit. So I'm excited to see who they'll be able to land to help them ball out in 2026. Coming up, we'll react to Mel Kiper of ESPN and Field Yates of ESPN, their mock drafts. Both of them different players, different sides of the ball. I'll let you know who they have the Ravens selecting at number 14. Before that, though, if you want the Ravens to absolutely crush the draft, do me one big favor, hit that thumbs up button and like today's video. So before we get into their picks, I want to let you know what I believe the Ravens' top draft needs are. I think it's offensive line. I think it's defensive line. I think that is number 1 and 2, and I don't even really think that's debatable, okay? And I think if you're going to debate it, you could convince me, okay, defensive line is over offensive line, but I believe those are 1 and 2 in whatever order you want to put them in. And I think defensive line, you could use guys on the interior and on the exterior, so that might shoot up to the very top. Outside of that, I think linebacker, I don't know how much longer Roquan Smith's going to be able to play decent football in the National Football League. I think you got a stud in Teddy Buchanan, but I do believe you need a little more depth at linebacker. Cornerback, who knows what's going to happen with Marlon Humphrey and his future. And then wide receiver. A little bit more on that in a second. And when I talk about a second, I mean literally a second, because Mel Kiper has the Baltimore Ravens selecting Makai Lemon, wide receiver out of USC. And if you've watched this dude play football for a single second, I promise you, regardless of what you believe the top needs are, you'd be excited about this pick. Mel Kiper with a little bit more. Lemon is one of my favorite prospects in this class. He attacks the ball in the air, and you can see his competitiveness and the way he plays the game. Like Zay Flowers, he's on the smaller side at 5'11", 195 pounds. But also like Flowers, he still has the inside-outside flexibility. Lemon went for 1,156 yards and 11 touchdowns this past season. And that kind of production could help Lamar Jackson get back to MVP levels. Look, I think that Makai Lemon is an unbelievable player. I think the dude is going to be a star in the National Football League. And I get it. You could compare him to Zay Flowers size-wise. He's bigger than Zay Flowers is, both height and weight reasons. Like, he looks bigger and he's much taller than he is. So I don't think you have to worry about getting another small wide receiver 1, quote-unquote. But we mentioned it before we told you the pick. This is not even near what the Ravens need the most. And when you look at the future, with the question marks surrounding Tyler Linderbaum, with the question marks surrounding Nnamdi Madubuike, you just don't know what you're going to have on the offensive and defensive line. So it's hard for me to just surpass that position, to pass up that position with a pick inside the top 15. But you also got to look at it like a Cowboys situation back in 2020. The Cowboys went into that draft with a ton of needs. Wide receiver wasn't necessarily at the top of their list. They had Amari Cooper. They had a couple of other good wideouts. But they thought no way in hell that CeeDee Lamb was going to fall all the way down to 17, but he did. And they just could not pass him up. If you're sure somebody's going to be a star in the National Football League, even if it's at a position you don't need the most help in, sometimes you can't help yourself but select them. And so I could see that being the case for Baltimore, where it gets to 14. They've got needs that they could fulfill in the offensive and defensive line. They never thought Makai Lemon was going to get there, and they pulled the trigger. Fill in the blank for me. I would feel blank if the Ravens draft Makai Lemon. Let me know your answer down below in the comment section. Caveat, this is drafting Makai Lemon in the first round, not just drafting him overall. This is what you'd be getting, a stud, okay? A guy who caught 79 balls this year, 1,100 yards, 14.6 yards a carry, 11 touchdowns, only 2 drops in 12 games played. And one of the coolest things is he's sharing the ball and, like, sharing receptions with other elite wideouts on USC's roster. Like, sure, he's got Mayava tossing him the rock, which helps a ton, But he's also got Jacoby Lane on that roster with him who caught for 745 yards. He's just been a really solid player over these last 2 years. Consistent playmaker. He made the massive, massive jump up this last season in 2025. Enough of a jump up to almost be a guaranteed pick inside the top, 15 or 16. And when it comes to the Ravens wide receiver room in 2025, there's a lot to talk about. Starting off at the top, Zay Flowers. You got to answer the question, is he a wide receiver one? I personally don't think he is. I think he would be the best wide receiver two in the league. But is he a wide receiver one? You've given him 3 seasons to prove that, and I don't know if he has. Sure, you can throw yards at me all you want, but let's just think about all the big game situations. When have we said, no matter what, you got to get the ball to Zay Flowers? In fact, we've had more chances. We've had more discussions about why does Zay Flowers always make these mistakes in the biggest parts of the game. Again, I think he's a great wide receiver. I don't think he's a wide receiver one. DeAndre Hopkins is a free agent. Rashod Bateman, he might suck. Probably the worst extension you did last season. Devontez Walker, for some reason, doesn't play, even though he shows flashes every single game. And then Tylan Wallace and LeJontay Wester, they were non-factors last year. And I kind of expect them to be non-factors in 2026 as well. Look, you got Lamar. You got a 2-time MVP candidate. Derrick Henry's only getting older. This offensive line has a ton of question marks. You're probably going to lose Isaiah Likely. Mark Andrews is geriatric at this point. You probably need some help in the wide receiver room. Let's just be honest. The question then turns to, where do you address it? Real quickly, we got to give a big shout out to the sponsor of today's show, our great friends over at PrizePicks. The big game is almost here, and there's no better way to cash in during America's biggest sporting event than PrizePicks, where it always feels good to be right. And since the game is right around the corner, that also means it's your last chance to get into the football action before next season. So close the season out right with PrizePicks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. Missing your fantasy team? My league is already over, but with PrizePicks, I don't have to wait until next year's draft to keep playing fantasy. PrizePicks lets you play fantasy football every week, even in the playoffs. Pick your favorite players and win when they hit their projections every week. No draft required. Join millions of users and sign up for America's #1 sports picks app. It is Conference Championship Day. Best day of the year, honestly. I absolutely love it. I'm going to take the more on Drake May, 227.5 pass yards. I'm going to take the less on Jarrett Stidham, 185.5 pass yards. I think New England punches their ticket to the big game. I'm going to take the more on Matthew Stafford and Sam Darnold pass yards. Give me the Seahawks to punch their ticket into the big game as well. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Link to this promo is in the comments and description of today's video. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. So that's who Mel Kiper chose. Let's talk about Field Yates out of ESPN as well. He has the Baltimore Ravens selecting Peter Woods, defensive tackle out of Clemson. And Yates goes on to explain a little bit more his reasoning behind the pick of Woods. It's always wise to look beyond the box score with DT prospects, and that's especially the case with Woods. He has only 5 sacks in 3 seasons, but he can create havoc at the line of scrimmage. Woods has the agility and quickness that could allow him to move out to the edge for some snaps as well. Now, I will admit, I do like that a decent bit about Woods, is that he has that versatility to be on the inside and also on the outside. But, I'm not in love with him as a prospect. I'm not in love with him as a player. I'm sure as hell not in love with him as a top half of the draft in the first round kind of guy. Look, at the end of the day, you could say whatever you want to me, but havoc does not win Super Bowls. Havoc does not win in the NFL on Sundays. Havoc is a great thing to have. Good defenses are able to create havoc, but good defenses are able to stop the run and get to the quarterback consistently. That's what I'm looking for, not somebody to come in here and create havoc. I'm looking for somebody to come in here and create plays. And Peter Woods just hasn't done that as high enough as a clip. And let's call a spade a spade. He played for Clemson in the ACC. That's a horrible conference. It's not like he played for Ohio State. It's not like he played for Georgia, Alabama, had to play top 10 teams week in and week out. He's playing Wake Forest, NC State, Duke, Virginia, most of his Saturdays. And still just not much. The traits are great. They're fun. They're awesome. But like, we went through this with Shamar Stewart last year. Now, I don't have a disdain towards Peter Woods quite like I did Shamar. But every time we talked about Shamar, I came back to the same sentiment of too often teams just disregard production and take a chance on somebody's projection, which sometimes works, but oftentimes it doesn't. Like, I think we're too quick to just throw away what they just did on the football field because they come out in their underwear and they bench press a lot and they jump high and they run fast. And we think that's going to ultimately translate in the NFL when we should just look at the film and what they've been doing on the football field. Because that's what you're drafting them to do, is play football. You're not drafting them to put on spandex and sprint. You're drafting them to put on shoulder pads and create something more than havoc. You ask them to go out there and create plays. Still left on the board for Kiper that I would rather have over Makai, Vega Ione. Offensive guard out of Penn State. Think this guy's going to be a star. You need offensive guard help, especially with the question marks surrounding Tyler Linderbaum. And Akeem Mesidor. If you watch Miami in their college football playoff run, Akeem Mesidor jumped off the page every single game. Okay? Talk about a dude who makes plays. Still on the board for Field Yates that I would possibly be more interested in than Peter Woods. Vega Ione still, just like in Mel Kiper's. Also Sonny Styles, linebacker out of Ohio State. Gage, how many missed tackles did Sonny Styles have this year? 0. You guys can't see Gage. I can, though. He was holding up this, okay? 0. Not a 1. That's interesting to me. My dream targets are Ruben Bain and David Bailey, though, okay? If I could have it my way, if the draft board could perfectly fall, Bain and Bailey would be the guys that fall Baltimore. I don't know if they will. If I had to bet on it, I don't think they will. But if they did, man, I would be jumping for joy. That's going to do it for today's show. Make sure you guys got me followed on socials. Subscribe to the channel. You can find my socials right here or down below in the comment section. Make sure to hit me up and hit that big red sub button.